So here we go, just moving the mouse around, and it's entering text there. Again, this is visible, but it could be in a hidden iframe, and you'd be filling in fields in a form on another site. Actually, in Firefox, this does go a bit crazy, and it will work in up there as well. Yeah, that's... okay. So that technique I just showed you, it's called form spraying. So instead of requiring a click for each field we want to fill in, we can actually just fill in lots of fields in one go. Now, the details of this vary between various browsers. In some browsers, you have to move the mouse between each drop. For example, that's the case with Chrome. So actually carrying out this attack may be a little tricky, but it's definitely possible. This also does work on Macs with the default Java runtime there, but it doesn't work on Linux. On Linux, you actually still have to do a real drag and drop moving the mouse for this to work. Okay, so that was techniques for injecting data into a web page and extracting data from a web page. So all of those, like normal clickjacking, require user interaction to work. I'm going to show you something a little different here, and this is something which I actually discovered during the course of preparing this presentation. And it allows us to get some information out of a frame automatically. Now, you remember at the start of the presentation, I said that the same origin policy prevents one site from accessing the content of a framed page. Now, that's not entirely true. So, if you think back to near the start of the presentation, I mentioned the fragment positioning method. That was using IDs in a page and using the fragment identifier at the end of the URL to make the iframe scroll to a particular element without knowing exactly where it was on the page. Now, clickjacking uses nested iframes. So we've got an inner iframe that has a particular site in, and then we have the outer iframe that's cropping it and positioning it on a page. Now, with the fragment positioning, what happens when you load a URL with a fragment on it is that the browser will scroll the iframe to make that particular element visible. Now, we've got the two iframes, and what the browser actually does is scroll the outer iframe, and that's controlled by the attacker. And because for that reason, we can actually read back the scroll position of the iframe and detect the position of a particular element on a web page. So this is how it's done. We load a page in the iframe. We make it very small. We navigate to a particular URL and include a fragment at the end of an ID that we know might be in the page. And we can then read the scroll position of the iframe to tell whether or not it's in the page and also the position of it on the page. Now, what use is this actually? There's been various research to determine from a browser whether or not the user is logged into a particular site. This is useful for something like clickjacking because it requires user interaction. Now, let's say someone was trying to target a user's webmail account. The user might use Gmail, they might use Yahoo, they might use Hotmail. Now, because a clickjacking attack requires user interaction, we don't want to target a site that they're not logged into, that they're not using. So if we can tell whether they're logged into a particular site, that could potentially be very useful.